Hey there, it's Lara here. It is Tuesday, September 1st. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Normally I'm here on Wednesday. And those of you who are regulars will know that, but I'm here Tuesday because we've got this full moon happening in Pisces overnight tonight into the wee hours of tomorrow, depending on where you live. And so I wanted to give you a heads up about that. And I also had some time to do this today. So, I've been a little irregular here for the last, 6 weeks or so over part of the summer. There's lots going on, and that may continue. I'm sort of, I'm embracing that mutable energy, which I have lots of in my chart, but also North Node in Gemini, right? Requiring us to be flexible in these uncertain times. And so I'm trying my best to kind of go with the flow. It's not always easy at all. It's been a very challenging time, as it has been for everyone. So I'm no exception to that. And but I am here to share with you this full moon in Pisces and what's going on in relation to that, because even though I had to take a deep breath before I tell you this, because I don't even want to say it. But even though September is shaping up to be a very challenging month, I know, as if it could get more challenging, but it's September, the fall. I've been saying this for a while. Things are really reaching a fever pitch. And so we need to be mindful of that. But, again, forewarned is forearmed, right? But this full moon, and then the new moon in a couple weeks in Virgo, but this full moon in Pisces here is, although there are some challenges co-present with the full moon, there is this sense, this sort of underlying or overarching, depending how you look at it, sense of, a sort of a faint light off in the distance. And so, that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. And just give you a heads up about what house this full moon is concentrated on for you, right? Which I'll do later in the video, but of how this full moon can be, helpful and give us some support in the challenges that we're going through. So the moon is in Pisces today as I am recording this, and then we'll have the full moon, right, overnight tonight or into the wee hours of tomorrow morning. And then she'll move into Aries on Thursday, and Taurus on Sunday, and Gemini on Tuesday, right, as she circles the zodiac. So if you haven't grabbed my guide, my free guide to working with the moon over on my website, then you can head over there and take advantage of that. And it just gives you the basics in terms of getting started with, working with the moon, paying attention to where she's at in the sky every few days and how that impacts your daily ebbs and flows, and what the moon in each zodiac sign lends well to, that sort of thing. So you can grab that if you want. But when I was thinking about this particular full moon and looking at the chart, I was reminded of a quote by Carl Jung, who was also an astrologer. And I posted it on, I posted on Facebook and Instagram a couple of weeks ago, but I was reminded of it because it really, to me, it encapsulates the energy of this full moon, right? So the quote is, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." And so with the full moon in Pisces, opposite the sun in Virgo, right? As a full moon is always when the sun and the moon are opposite each other in the sky. The moon is reflecting the light of the sun. And we've got that divine masculine energy of the sun and the divine feminine energy of the moon facing each other. And needing to kind of maybe work something out, right? So the moon is sitting, like I said, in Pisces, this mutable water sign. The sun is sitting in Virgo, a mutable earth sign. Signs that are opposite each other are always they're trying to come to the same sort of place. They have a similar intention, but they go about it in different ways, right? And so it's like opposite sides of the same coin. And with Virgo and Pisces, this is the axis. Well, I often refer to it as the axis of practical Virgo, magic Pisces. But it's very much about order, right? Virgo, and chaos, Pisces. So that Jung quote is completely fitting in this sense. It's about the mundane, Virgo, and the mystical, Pisces. It's about also our wellness, our overall wellness. Virgo is more about sort of the practical, physical kind of end of that. And then Pisces is more about the spiritual, unseen sort of mental end of that, right? Spectrum. But wholeness, wellness, right? When we have those two things in balance, we are whole and well. So that's the energies that are at play here at the time of this full moon, which is happening, because I haven't said it yet, at 1:22 a.m., September 2nd, and that's Eastern time. So you can adjust accordingly for wherever you are. But it's 10 degrees Pisces. The sun is at 10 degrees Virgo. And there is a conversation happening with Uranus here. And also with Pallas, Asteroid Pallas, Athena. So Uranus is, I'm going to show you this on the chart in a minute, is sitting in Taurus at exactly 10 degrees as well at the time of this full moon. And so it's making a trine to the sun in Virgo and a sextile to the moon in Pisces, which is supportive, right? Sextiles and trines are supportive energies. And so that's a bit of good news in trying times. And Pallas Athena is sitting up in Capricorn, and she is at 12 degrees up there. And she is also making a trine to the sun and a sextile to the moon. So also supporting, right, this full moon in Pisces. But then we have something else going on with Mars, who's the fly in the ointment right now. And Mars is sitting in Aries, the sign of its rulership. And it is in what we call a T-square, a very tense conversation with both Venus, who's currently sitting in Cancer, and opposing Saturn, who's currently sitting in Capricorn. So Venus and Saturn are across the sky. Mars, right, is butting up against them, making this T-square. And so let me show you that on the chart, and then we'll talk more about all of this. Okay, here's the chart. So there we've got the sun in Virgo at 10 degrees, right? Right across the sky, there's the moon in Pisces at 10 degrees. There's Uranus in Taurus at 10 degrees, right? So making a sextile and a trine. And there's Pallas Athena up there at 12 degrees Capricorn, also making a trine and a sextile. And there we got Saturn at 25 of Capricorn right now. Saturn retrograde, right across from Venus at 25 of Cancer. So an exact opposition. And then we've got Mars over here, 27 Aries, right? Making this T-square. So that's what I want to show you on the chart, to give you a visual. That's what's going on. So like I was saying, all full moons are a time of culmination, illumination, when something reaches a fever pitch or a crisis point, or a release or a catharsis, I think is a really good word for this particular full moon. But at full moons, So this particular full moon, like all full moons, right? It's like the monthly moon cycle goes, we have a new moon, and then 2 weeks later we have a full moon. So the new moon that happened 2 weeks ago may have, there may have been some seeds planted, or something sort of leveled up. And then at the time of this full moon, whatever that is, reaches a bit of a culmination or an illumination or a next leveling up or a crisis point. But in a longer range view, the new moon that happened in Pisces 6 months ago would have planted some seeds that are now reaching culmination, fruition. Now, at that point where they're ready to harvest, or there's some sort of catharsis or release happening in relation to what began, or fever pitch being reached to what began 6 months ago, right? And that will be, the specifics of that will differ depending on our birth chart and where the full moon is happening for us, which I'm going to get to in a couple of minutes. But like all full moons, there is this potential for emotions running high, at the time of a full moon, because the moon pulls on our emotions just as she pulls on the tides. And so as we have, if we have sort of emotions that we've been kind of stuffing down there, or they've been bubbling under the surface, and we've been ignoring them or trying our best to keep them contained, when the full moon happens, it's like the geyser, right? Can blow, and it's the emotions can bubble up, can boil over, can be, the floodgates can open, that kind of thing. And particularly because this full moon is happening in the very sensitive sign of Pisces, it can be it can be emotional overwhelm around the time of this full moon. But what we have to keep in mind is that when we have our emotions, erupt, and it's a release that needs to happen. If it can happen in a more controlled way, that's always better, when we're not lashing out and damaging relationships and situations, but a good cry around the time of a full moon can be really cleansing and helpful. Anything you can do to sort of release, right? Any pent up emotions in a healthy way. So, but what I'm trying to say is that ultimately that release, it's necessary, because it leads us in the end to greater clarity, right? And awareness, and sort of like the heaviness being lifted, the fog being lifted. And it's not always pretty, but it allows us to kind of move on from here, maybe to release, to let go, that kind of thing. And so we've got, Uranus in the mix here, but in a supportive way. So Uranus is this energy of awakening, of flash insights, right? Flashes of genius sometimes, but it's about disrupting the status quo, liberating us in some way. It's about rebellion and sudden change and shock and awe and these kinds of things, right? That's the energy of Uranus. And so in a supportive conversation, ultimately what Uranus is trying to do at the time of this full moon is wake us out of our slumber. And maybe, there is the potential here for some kind of something happening that almost seems like magic with Pisces, very mystical and magical, that, we may kind of not expect or second guess. There can be a sense of divine grace. I get that as well. That can happen around this time. And we may not even recognize that for what it is at the time. But that can happen. And so, and then I think the interplay of Asteroid Pallas up there in Capricorn is lending us the support of creative intelligence, creative genius, strategizing. Pallas Athena is the feminine warrior who's very clever. And so she's less inclined to draw first blood and more inclined to pull a sort of Trojan horse kind of a move. You know what I mean? She's very, very clever. And so we have that. energy available to us. And, we do well to utilize it around now. And then we've got, of course, like I said, fly in the ointment, this T-square to Mars, right? And so this is not going to allow us to lose sight of reality, which is good in a sense, because that can be the downside of Pisces, escaping reality in unhealthy ways. Pisces going around going, la, 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 I can't hear you, or I can't see you, right? Because it's just too painful to look at. It's too overwhelming. And so, Pisces can escape into dream world, fantasy, addictions, these kinds of things, because it's just all too much. And so this Mars in Aries and making the T-square is giving us the courage and the strength and the willpower to face reality, even though it can be quite harsh. And, if we're not using that energy consciously, that Mars in Aries, I'm going to say this again, I've said it before, it can lead to aggression and violence. And we're seeing that all over the world. What we want to do is use that in a constructive rather than destructive way. So basically, there's no escaping reality right now, unfortunately, on the one hand. But on the other hand, this Pisces full moon is saying, trust the process, have faith, believe that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And in fact, that's saying those with eyes to see and ears to hear will be able to sense that. It's like, if you've ever been up for sunrise and if you're really paying attention, you can see the very first imperceptible glow of the sun coming over the horizon, right? And it's kind of like, I get the sense that this full moon is offering us that for those of us who are paying attention. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean we don't have rough patches to navigate before the sun rises, kind of thing, but it's there nonetheless. And so I think if we embrace that sort of higher vibe of Pisces, right? Compassion, empathy for self and others, tapping into the kind of collective consciousness, trusting our intuition, big time. Trusting your intuition is huge when the moon is in Pisces. Trusting the divine plan, a greater power, whatever that means for you. Trusting that, as Jung said, in all chaos there is a cosmos, and in all disorder a secret order, right? Very much. So we need to kind of ride the wave right now, instead of trying to fight and resist. And when I say instead of trying to fight, please don't think that I'm saying you should sit back and just, nothing to see here. I'm just going to do my thing over here while the world is falling to pieces around me. Sometimes we do need to take a step back and care for ourselves and our circle, but we also have a role to play in the collective and in the greater good. And there is a way to use our discomfort and our anger constructively. And so that's advisable right now as well. So, it's like, using our anger, our rage, our discomfort, in ways that do no harm but take no shit. That's the mantra, for this period of time, I would say. So with that being said, I'm going to zip through each of the 12 signs here and let you know where this is falling for you, based first and foremost on rising sign. Because that's most accurate when we're doing a general forecast here. Also, I don't know if I said this or not, because this is take 2 of this video, but sorry for the glare on my glasses. If you've been around here for a while, I had an eye thing going on last year. It's back. So that's why I'm wearing the glasses. I know it can be a bit distracting, but anyway, What I want to say before I zip through each rising sign is that those with planets around the 10-degree mark of the earth or the water signs, so Cancer, Virgo, earth signs first, Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus, or Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, will feel this most intensely. And then those folks that have planets around the last 5 to 10 degrees of the cardinal signs, so Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, are going to feel that squeeze of the T-square to Mars most intensely, right? So I have all of this going on in my chart, all of it. So yeah, I'm right there with you if you're feeling, the pressure right now. It is a bit of a pressure cooker, and we just have to be mindful and have faith and do the right thing and, act with integrity and all of that. So, and you'll notice both Cancer and Capricorn, they're a double whammy here because Cancer's cardinal water and Capricorn's cardinal earth. So, all right, let's zip through each sign and, listen for your rising sign first and foremost, and then you can listen for your sun and your moon as well. We're going to start with Pisces because Pisces, this is your full moon. So keeping in mind everything I said in the intro, we're looking to you, Pisces, right now as a bit of an example and how to navigate these challenging times. But this full moon in particular is reaching a crescendo. It's illuminating something that has to do with your first house, right? And themes around the first house, which speaks to the self. It's the house of the self. I, me, mine. Who I project myself as in the world, how the world perceives me, how I respond instinctually to the world and respond to, new experiences, that kind of thing. And it's also very much about our physical body and being, our physical wellness and vitality and health and appearance and that kind of thing. And so something is reaching this crescendo that may have had some beginnings a couple of weeks ago at the new moon, but more likely, seeds were planted around 6 months ago in some way at the time of the new moon in your sign in Pisces. And whatever that was that began is now reaching this point of culmination or release or catharsis or what have you, right? So that's for you, Pisces. Next, we've got Aquarius, where the full moon is happening in your second house. So Aquarius, for you, this culmination, this illumination, this release, this crescendo of the full moon is happening in relation to your personal resources, right? Second house. So your money, your time, your energy, the things that you value, the things that sustain you, and your sense of worth and self-worth. So, these are the themes that are being highlighted at the full moon for you. And, see if you can kind of sense that faint light on the horizon, right? That I spoke about in the introduction. So that's for you, Aquarius. Next, we've got Capricorn. Capricorn, you've got the full moon illuminating your third house this month. And so that catharsis or release point or, things coming to culmination is happening in your third house of your immediate environment. So this involves things like your neighborhood, your community and the people in it, your siblings, your cousins, your teammates, your peers. It involves communications. It involves marketing. It involves commerce. It involves potentially, any kind of early learning that goes on that you're connected to in some way. It's like the third house is of things that are sort of like swirling around us on the day-to-day, right? Our communications, messages exchanged back and forth. So these are the themes that are being triggered at this full moon. And, you'll have a sense of either something that kind of began a couple of weeks ago at the time of the new moon, but more likely, you had got the first inklings around 6 months ago at the time of the new moon that happened in Pisces then. So that's for you, Capricorn. Next, we've got Sagittarius. Sagittarius, the full moon is reaching a crescendo in your 4th house. So this is illuminating themes of home and family and place of living and your roots and your emotional sense of security and, nurturing figures in your life, mother figures, that sort of thing. This is what's being really illuminated for you and reaching some kind of a culmination or a crisis point, a fever pitch, a release, a leveling up, all of those things that I said in the intro. So something's happening here, and it may have, there may have been some kind of new beginning or fresh start a couple of weeks ago, but more likely about 6 months ago at the time of the new moon in Pisces. If you look back to that, you'll see, which would have happened in March, you'll see what got off the ground there, what began. That is reaching a culmination point now. So next we've got Scorpio. Scorpio, for you, the full moon's illuminating your 5th house. And this has to do with your creative self-expression and creative spark, what sparks joy for you, what brings you pleasure. It has to do with children, and it has to do with how you shine your light in the world, right? And so for you, Scorpio, something that began maybe a couple of weeks ago, but more likely about 6 months ago, the first inklings happened, is now reaching this point of illumination or culmination or reaching a fever pitch, reaching that sort of cathartic point, that sort of thing, right? That we spoke about in the intro. So that's what to look for in terms of your own experience with the full moon, Scorpio. And next we've got Libra. So Libra, for you, the full moon is reaching a fever pitch, a culmination point, a crescendo in your 6th house of your daily habits and routines, the daily grind of issues around health and illness, and around how you are of service. This often involves relationships between people that are not on an equal playing field. This can also be about pets, if that applies to you. And so something in these areas is reaching this point of, again, this full moon culmination point, right? And there may have been some new beginning in relation to this a couple weeks ago, but more likely about 6 months ago with the full moon, with the new moon in Pisces that happened, is when, this kind of began. Whatever this is. So that's for you, Libra. And then next we've got Virgo. Virgo, this full moon is illuminating your 7th house. Now you've got the sun sitting in your sign, right, over in the 1st house, and the moon is across the sky in the 7th house. 1st and 7th are opposite each other. And this is the axis of relationship. So specifically, the moon is illuminating your house of the other, of close personal relationships, right? One-to-one relationships of all kinds. Whether that be marriage partners, close friends, family members, business partners, rivals, this kind of thing. Also, the 7th house speaks to contracts and agreements. And so, Virgo, for you, something here is reaching a culmination, this point of fruition, that, there may have been something highlighting this a couple weeks ago at the new moon that happened, but more likely about 6 months ago at the new moon in Pisces that happened, right? Because this is the full moon in Pisces. And incidentally, Virgo, in 2 weeks' time, you're going to have your own new moon in your sign. So stay tuned for that. But that's what's happening for the full moon, Virgo, for you. And then next we've got Leo, where we've got the full moon reaching a crescendo in your 8th house, Leo. So for you, this culmination, this fruition, this release, crisis, catharsis, however it plays out for you, is happening in relation to your intimate connections, your entanglement with other people's resources, so other people's time, money, energy. This often has to do with things like taxes, insurance, debt, loans, bursaries, grants, money that comes to you from outside sources. And but it can also be, it's very much about this whole process of our entanglement with others and this sort of cycle of transformation and death and rebirth, right? So this is where this catharsis, this full moon, is reaching a crescendo for you, Leo. And if you look back about 6 months to something that began at the new moon in Pisces, you may get an indicator of what this is about for you. So next we've got Cancer, where the full moon is illuminating your 9th house, Cancer. So your 9th house speaks to things like teaching, learning. It speaks to your philosophy, your worldview, your belief system, your connection with foreign cultures and foreign people, and what you can learn from that. Sometimes it has to do with travel, usually of a longer distance variety. But it's very much about your philosophy and your worldview. And so for you, something that began, if you look back around 6 months ago to the full moon, to the new moon in Pisces in March, you'll get a sense of this story that has played out over these 6 months. And now it's reaching this culmination point at the time of the full moon for you, Cancer, in relation to those 9th house themes, right, that I spoke about. Next, we've got Gemini. Gemini, for you, the full moon is reaching an illumination, a culmination point. Something's coming to pass, reaching a fever pitch, all those words I used in the intro, in your 10th house of your public reputation and persona, your worldly ambitions, the legacy you wish to leave, your career, your relationship to authority and authority figures, and your own authority. And so, something's coming to pass here that probably had the seeds planted back in March at the time of the new moon in Pisces. And so if you think about those 10th house themes, you'll get a sense, right, of what's the story here and what is needing now to be released, let go of, what's coming up to be illuminated, that kind of thing, right? Anything that a full moon potentially could bring us. And, remember the Uranus piece that I spoke about in the introduction. So if you haven't listened to the intro, definitely go back and listen to that. Okay, so that's for you, Gemini. Next, we've got Taurus. Taurus, this full moon is shining a light on 11th house issues for you. So for you, Taurus, this is all about the group. It's about the collective. It's about friendships, organizations, clubs, associations, the greater good, potentially, humanitarian efforts. It's about connecting and networking with other people. This can be online even. And it's about people that are walking the same path as you, people that can help you reach your goals and get you where you want to go as well. So for you, Taurus, something that began, the seeds were planted around the new moon in Pisces back in March, and now it's reaching this crescendo right now. And so if you follow that thread back, you can get a sense of what that is about for you. And there may be some nice support here from Uranus and Taurus. If you listen to the intro, you'll get a sense of that. And if you know where Taurus falls in your chart, then you can get a sense of what house that Uranus energy is coming from, right? So next and last but not least in this case, we've got Aries, because Aries, this is happening in your 12th house. So for you, Aries, it's the 12th house things that are being illuminated, which is interesting because 12th house is about the unseen. It's about what goes on behind closed doors. It's about how we sabotage ourselves sometimes, right? It's about things we are not necessarily aware of in our conscious awareness. It's about dreams, our connection to the unseen, to our spirituality. It is about the 12th house is kind of like that place of limbo, between the worlds almost, and it can speak literally to how we spend our time and rest and reflection and solitude and that kind of thing. It can be about places behind closed doors, that are tucked away from the world, like hospitals and spiritual retreat centers and rehab facilities and different things like this, right? So ultimately, something's coming to pass here that the initial beginnings happened around 6 months ago when the new moon happened in Pisces, and now it's reaching this point of illumination or culmination as we hit the full moon in Pisces, right? So there can be a big cathartic release of maybe some unconscious things, that are now coming to the surface to be released for you, Aries. That's a potential. So all right, that's all 12 signs, and I hope this gave you some insight into what's ahead for all of us and what's in store. And I will talk to you soon. Be well. And if you want to catch me more regularly, please do come over to Facebook and Instagram. And, I'm there more often than I am here. So take good care, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.